Ladies and gentlemen, I just finished watching Daryl Dixon Season 2, Episode 2, and it wouldn't be a Jerry's Takes Daryl Dixon review if I didn't try to pronounce the name of this one. This episode is called Moulin Rouge? Wow, that was actually easy this time. And before I get into the review further, there's something that I do quickly need to address. So if you want to skip right to the review, I'm going to add a chapter marker for that, but this should be quick, but just feel free to skip if you need to. So let's jump into this. There's been an overwhelming amount of comments that I've been receiving lately where people get mad if I didn't like an episode of this or any other Walking Dead show. And just to let you know, I may not reply to every single comment that I get on the channel, but I read every single comment that's posted on my videos. I only think it's fair to get a pulse check on how the community is feeling and look out for any feedback as it comes. I've never been the type ever to get personally affected by comments. It's not how I am, and I appreciate all kinds of feedback, even criticisms. There is one thing that I need to address though. I've been seeing a common theme on my channel lately of people saying how it's in character for me to always hate a show or that I'm always pessimistic. And in there, I've also seen comments of people taking my reviews personally and saying some really nasty things, all because I didn't praise something that they loved. Those comments don't bother me. They straight up never have. And quite frankly, I find them embarrassing on behalf of the commenter, but I do need to make myself very clear. I am not seeking pessimism. I am not trying to hate the things that I watch. My goal with this channel is to give the most honest takes that I can on anything at all that I review and discuss. And if there's a thought that comes into my head while I'm watching an episode, I write it down whether it's good or bad. You'll never see me sugarcoat something on this channel. I don't believe in that sort of stuff, and if that's what you're looking for, there are plenty of other channels that cover The Walking Dead that do that stuff. I can name a few in my head. I'm not going to do that out of respect for those creators, but you probably know who they are. So if you want the fluff, find them. That's just straight up not me on anything that I do. So I'm going to continue to shoot it straight, whether you like it or not. And if that's a problem to you, then quite frankly, I don't really care and I don't really want you on my channel. So if you like something that I didn't, that's totally normal and what makes art really so much fun. But there's a limit to how much fun that could be. And when people get defensive and hostile over a different opinion on the appreciation of art, then that just simply defeats its purpose. I'm not going to stop people from commenting or even getting hostile because free speech is a great thing. But just know that the laugh's on you for getting hostile over a different opinion. When that happens, there's only one person who looks like a fool. With that being said, I'm going to continue being me. Nothing is going to change in that regard, but just know that if you watch these reviews expecting me to be like a simp over The Walking Dead or anything else I review, then go find another channel because that is so not me and goes against everything that I stand for. So, with that said, back to the review. So Season 2, Episode 2 of The Walking Dead, Daryl Dixon, The Book of Carol. That's a long freaking name. Well, it opened with the seagull sound effect from SpongeBob SquarePants, so I was getting ready to hear, "Are ya ready, kids?" Which is really cringy, but I'm dead serious. It was the same freaking seagull sound effect, and then it cut to this whole monologue with Laurent, which is totally fine. I mean, I don't have anything wrong with that. I actually thought it was great to see it open up with Laurent and Daryl and Isabel again. I really did like Season 1 because of their dynamic, so it was great to see a further continuation of that. And honestly, I've seen a lot of criticism of Laurent over this year that the show's been out, and honestly, if I'm being honest, I've always liked him and his actor. My problem overall isn't even with Laurent, it's more or less with the whole narrative that he's like the chosen one, which I personally find stupid. It's of course it's a little similar to The Last of Us, but that's not even my real problem with it. I just don't think it really works in terms of the story that they're setting up, and it makes no sense. And as a matter of fact, the whole chosen one thing is a heavy focus of this episode and a seemingly heavier focus of this season, given the stuff that we got here. And while I'm thinking about it, now that I've watched this episode when I did, for full transparency, I did see all the leaks because after Paramount Plus leaked them, someone sent me a link, and I'm going to be honest, I watched the episode, but I do think that this season just works better on a binge. Dan's Reviews made a video all about this, talking about the leaks and how that when you watch this season on a binge, it feels better. I really do wholeheartedly think that they should have just released these 6 episodes all at once, especially after the Paramount Plus leak thing happened, because this season, to me, at least so far, and while I'm making this review, I didn't get to watch the rest. I'm going to. By the time this review's on the channel, I will have seen the whole season. But that being said, I could just tell that this season just plays out better on a binge. That's how season 1 was. That's even how The Walking Dead: The Ones Who Live was. I just don't understand. I mean, I get it that they like the hype. They like people talking about the show and all of that. I do genuinely understand that. But this show just plays out so much better when you're watching it on a binge, because a lot of the problems I had with something like episode 1, which I still have going into even this episode and things like that, they just play out better and are just more digestible when you're watching them on a binge. It's not quite the same when you have to watch it week by week. So I guess if that's sort of any TLDR of how I feel, I did like this episode a little bit more, but I also liked that I watched it right after watching episode 1. And then now, I mean, I didn't watch it at the time of recording this, but going right into episode 3 and 4, I'd assume it just plays out better, and I could tell you it did, at least for episode 2. So I really did want to say that. And now I want to get back to this because I do really love the bond. And I know this is like a random transition, but I do love the bond that Daryl and Laurent have in the show. And I really do think it's great to see Daryl be a human and have a relationship with the characters around him. And I know it's a little bit later in the episode, but watching Daryl teach Laurent baseball was honestly a really nice moment that I'm glad we got to see. It was really cool that even he was talking about like American baseball and stuff like that. That was cool and all. But then after that series of nice moments and all that stuff, we saw Losang, I think that's his name, and the other lady start talking in French. And since I watched the leak, I only saw the Arabic subtitles during the French moments, so I didn't get to see what they were talking about, but clearly they were talking about some evil shit for Laurent that they were gonna do, and we clearly saw that later in the episode. I'm gonna get into that in a little bit, because that's just funny to me, but whatever. This is something that I will get back to because it certainly was goofy. But that being said, we immediately got a cut to Carol and Ash's story. And yes, that's his name. I forgot it in the first episode. Whatever. Sue me. Regardless, you'd probably think that I'd hate the Greenland story, and I kind of did. Obviously, if they're just landing in France with no backstory, I would have been pissed, so I'm glad we at least saw something. Did it 100% feel like Fear the Walking Dead writing? Yes. Does the need to kill Carol, another woman, for Ash to repopulate the Earth help the situation that unfolded there at all? No. I mean, if that's their goal, you would want to keep Carol alive. Like, what? The weirder thing with that was, what was the reasoning to actually kill Carol? It straight up made no sense, and it was just a waste of screen time. And quite frankly, that's how I felt about the whole thing. Like, obviously, we needed some sort of visual showing what happened in Greenland to make this far-fetched Amelia Earhart journey more believable, but the added suspense with these two Greenland bozos, just, it made no sense. And I know this is small, but another detail that I found hilarious was that Carol says something along the lines of, "Oh shit, we have a problem," and then the scene jump cuts to like 3 walkers in the distance with like a menacing boom sound effect. Like, oh my god, so scary. 3 walkers. I know that's a small detail, but like that's how stupid I felt that whole Greenland story was. It's like, oh shit, there's 3 walkers. Boom! And then it's of course these like weirdos that come in. They want to repopulate the Earth, and then they decide they have to kill Carol for this, which again, another female that doesn't hurt if you're trying to repopulate. what? Doesn't make sense. And then obviously the creepy girl was coming back with Carol, and then Ash has this heroic moment where he shoots her with like a flare gun or whatever it was. That was pretty wild. But tell me that didn't feel like Fear the Walking Dead writing. Like seriously, that just felt like Fear the Walking Dead writing to me, okay? Fine. Now with that being said, I do feel like Daryl Dixon season 2 is continuing to do well with Daryl's story, but given the rush to bring Carol back into the fold, I feel like they dropped the ball in the writing of her backstory. And honestly, I'm glad that we finally got to see her end up in France, because I really do hope those complaints of mine and the rest of the community at large are settled a little bit now that Carol actually made it there, because now we should have what the show was always intended to be, which is Carol and Daryl in France. So I guess I'm excited for that. And that even goes into Ash, by the way. Ash feels like an afterthought, and that whole backstory just really did. It felt forced. The more I think about episode 1 of this show, and now even into episode 2, it just feels like they were trying to force this story, and it was just uncomfortable. And I think that was my bigger problem with it. I know some people are critical of the Daryl side of the story in general, and that's why they don't like the Daryl Dixon show, but I feel like my problem so far, the only real problem I've had, is Carol and Ash, because not that I dislike Carol or anything, I just didn't think her story with him felt believable. It felt like Fear the Walking Dead, and hopefully now that it's more settled, now that they're in France, that gets resolved. That's really what I'm hoping for. But after we see Carol, I should say, get to France, she discovers, I guess, Madame Janae's group, and they take her in, it seems like, and that's where that goes. But what we do get for the rest of the episode, which I found to be a mix of interesting, like storytelling wise, I was invested in it, but also really dumb, and it's that Lasang and those people, the people in the nest or Hogwarts or whatever you call it, they were actually on the side of like testing Laurent? What? I just don't get it. Like, that's stupid to me. Like, why would you just want to test him? Which, okay, you say it's gonna work because he's the chosen one. Bro, come on. How long have you been in this fucking apocalypse? Like, seriously, do you really think he is the chosen one? The way you say, where you're gonna test him with what? The vaccine that gives you the Walker virus or whatever it is that Madame Janae and her group created? That makes no sense. That just makes no sense. If you have such a big asset in a character like Laurent that you like truly believe is this big asset, why would you test him and risk the possibility of him dying? I get it. Maybe that's like what they think will like solve this thing or whatever, but it's just stupid. It really is just stupid. I don't understand that. And you know what I will say, to give credit where credit's due, I liked that I like that Losang's story was like clearly set up in a way where he's not a good dude, but clearly he didn't want people to die. The girl was the one who like ordered Daryl to die and all of that stuff. I found that to be interesting. So you could tell like there's a sympathetic side to this guy, and he's portrayed that way in general. So I'm interested to see where that goes throughout the rest of the season. But that being said, it's just like I feel like they're introducing tension just to introduce tension. But it is also the story of the show. That was what was set up and established in season 1. And where obviously it seems that we're going to be going in season 2 at large. Do I think it's a good storyline? No, I honestly really don't. I think it's kind of goofy. But if that's the cards were dealt this season, I don't know that I hate it either. But again, I did like this episode more than the first episode. So I think that should be a sign of things to come. At this point, honestly, I'm just being transparent with you. I have seen spoilers before even watching the episodes. I've seen the spoilers on Twitter and all of that of what's to come, which sucks that happened. But I can't ignore the facts. I saw them before even watching episode 2. So I think that has me optimistic for what's going to happen in the story, and hopeful that we're going to get more. And obviously, I don't want to get into that in this video. And if I see any spoilers in the comments, I will be deleting them. I will be monitoring them because I read these comments. If I see one, they're gone. The only thing I'm going to say is, having been spoiled some of that stuff, I do think it's going to help the story overall. Like, I think they're going to take this in a place that's fine, and I kind of understand it. So I don't know. I feel a little weird. I feel like this Paramount Plus leak thing really screwed with, the overall pacing that would be watching this show the way most fans are going to be watching this show. And I have a lot of thoughts there. Like, I really do think they should have just aired all of these episodes after. But in the end of the day, I don't know. I'm kind of torn on emotions. I thought there were some goofy elements to this episode for sure. Like the Greenland stuff was ridiculous. The Losang plot, which I think clearly is going to take effect for the rest of the season, is a little goofy, but I'll be on the bandwagon. That's fine. I'm okay with it. But if I'm ignoring those two things, I actually found myself enjoying this episode a lot more than I did the first episode. There wasn't as many moments in this one where I was like, well, that's just stupid. The only thing is that overarching thing, of course, with Losang, like I said, but that wasn't as immersion breaking as, like, let's say the lightning bolt in episode 1 taking out the power and immediately opening the gates. Like, that's Fear the Walking Dead shit. This episode felt more like the Daryl Dixon show, just with a couple goofy decisions along the way, if that makes any sense. Quality felt a little bit better, just still questionable. So, I don't know. I'm excited to see where it goes. Again, I've already been spoiled some stuff, so I'm excited to see those things happen and how we get to those things. But, yeah, that's about it. Realistically, I'd love to hear from you. Did you love this episode? Did you hate this episode? Do you feel the same? Who knows? Let's start a healthy conversation down there. With all that out of the way, thank you again so much for watching this video. If you want to see the gear that I use to make this YouTube dream of mine come true, the links for all the gear I use will be in the description. Those are, of course, affiliate links, so it'll help me out by just clicking on them if you decide to buy anything from there. And with that out of the way, thanks again so much for watching this video, and until the next one, I'll talk to you later. Peace out.